Okay, let's talk about holding the violin and how to do it properly. So right now I'm holding the violin in rest position, and this is handy because then you can have both hands free if you need to walk around with your violin, take a short little break while you're practicing. You know, this is a really safe position to hold your violin, and then you don't have to worry about setting it down somewhere and having it in a safe location, because you got to be really conscious of where you set your violin down. Make sure it's safe. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Hold the violin out in your left hand on the left side of the violin, and then just slip it under your right arm, just like so. And that's rest position. Make sure that the strings are facing out, away from you, and not facing in towards your body, because that would be wrong. We want them facing away like that. And the back of the violin should be against your side. So that's rest position. Now go ahead and put your left hand back on the violin, hold it out, tip it upside down, and go right up onto your collarbone. And that's how you hold the violin. So let's talk a little bit about the contact points of holding the violin, because we don't want to just put it up here and then clench onto it. You know, raise your shoulder and clench down with your chin and just clamp down onto the violin. We don't want to do that because it causes you a lot of pain and can cause a lot of problems later on when you get into playing. But it actually can be a pretty bad habit. There's a lot of people who do play like that. I don't even realize you're doing it. So there's 4 contact points to holding the violin, supporting the violin. Think of it as supporting the violin on your shoulder and not clenching it. So collarbone is the first contact point, and then your jaw. It's not actually your chin. It's actually more of your jaw that makes contact with the violin's chin rest, even though it's called a chin rest. Those 2 points hold the violin up here. They support the violin. And then down here on the neck and the fingerboard, we support the violin with our thumbs. And it can be anywhere on your thumb, based on how big or how small your hand is. You might hold it farther down on your thumb, or it might be higher up. And then the side of your index finger is the 4th contact point. And again, it might be more towards your knuckle, or it might be higher up on your finger, based on how big or how small your hand is. So those are the 4 contact points: collarbone, jaw, thumb, and side of the index finger. So we support this end of the violin with our collarbone and jaw, and then the thumb and the index finger hold this end of the violin up. Because it's pretty hard for these guys up here to hold the whole works up. It'll start to droop down. So we need to help it with our left hand. But for now, you can go ahead and just put your left hand here where you had it before when we were holding the violin out like this. You can hold the violin right there. And you don't really need to worry about this right now, because these 2 contact points are the harder ones to get them down correctly. Make sure you're doing it right and holding it, supporting it correctly. So for now, you can just hang on right here, because we just want to get comfortable with the violin up here. Let's find our comfortable spot up here and get this correct, and then we'll work on this down here in the next lesson when we get ready to play more notes. So just practice. You can take the violin down, put it back up, practice doing that to where it comes pretty natural. And again, like when I talked about chin rests, this can vary from person to person. You can have it a little more towards the center of your chest, or you can have it farther out, more on your shoulder. And that's okay, based on your body type and how you're built, how you want to hold it. And you probably will change this as we go along through the course. As you start to play more, you'll figure out what's comfortable for you. I don't like to see it in the middle of your chest though, like this, sloping down. That I don't like to see. That's usually bad posture when you're doing something like that. But you can change it a little bit from side to side. And what you will probably find is when you start using the bow is when you will change this, because depending on how long of arms you have, if you've got the violin more towards the center of your chest, then you have to stretch a lot farther. Let me back up a little bit. You got to stretch a lot farther with your arm to get to the tip of your bow. You see that? Now if I move the violin farther this way, then my arm doesn't have to stretch quite as much. I still have to stretch, but it helps me out a little bit if I have short arms to move the violin this way. The problem about moving it this way is now I've made it harder for my left hand. to reach over the strings. But if I have really flexible fingers, that might not be really a problem because they can take up the slack. But for me, I actually have more problems with my fingers than my arms. I don't really have too much trouble with the length of my arms. So if you, like me, and you have either short fingers or fingers that aren't very flexible, you may want to bring the violin a little bit more towards the center of your chest. That's how I generally hold it, because that helps my fingers get up over the strings to reach the notes. It still strains my arm because I have to wrap my arm around the violin to reach those notes, but that's pretty much how I have to play, because if I have the violin over here, then when I get onto this G string, it's really hard to reach these notes. So you know, that's probably more than you need to hear right now, but it will really come in handy later when you start actually to play more. Just know that it's okay to move this around, you know, and if you're the type of person that likes it more over here, then your chin may end up a little bit more over here on the side. If you want the violin over here farther, you're probably going to have more of a middle chin type chin rest. So take all that into account, and like I said before, go ahead and take that chin rest off if you need to, till you figure out what feels best to you. So I think that's all we need to talk about violin hold for now. That just practice going from like this up to your collarbone, and then back again, and just practice doing that till it gets really comfortable for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the lesson.